My name's Deputy Michael Fetherolf. I work for Franklin County Sheriff's Office and I run the CRASE program. CRASE is an acronym that stands for Civilians Response to Active Shooter Events. So CRASE training is different than what some active shooter responses taught across the United States called ALICE. Back in 2004, Texas State University developed the CRASE training, which they use avoid, deny, defend instead of the run, hide, fight taught in ALICE. And if you go through our program, you'll understand why we don't like the word hide. We brought this program, which is like state-of-the-art, brand new, back here to Franklin County about 7 years ago, and have trained about 30,000 residents in the CRASE program. But before we did, we had to make sure that all the other agencies here in Franklin County were on board, and that's exactly what we did. So the CRASE training is actually taught across the board by law enforcement here in Franklin County by Columbus, Westerville, Hilliard, and your sheriff's office. The program is broken down into two separate classes. The first class is just a PowerPoint presentation where we come to your business, your church, your school, wherever it is that we're requested, and we do a presentation for you. Basically, it covers the entire history of active shooter events, what it means, like what the FBI defines as an active shooter, as well as all the way up to current events, because we know that every time that there's an event that happens, we learn something as far as law enforcement goes and civilians. So we cover a lot of the history. And then we go into what here at Franklin County and other agencies are training across the nation on what we want civilians to do in response to the active gunfire. We kind of come up with a plan. What we find out a lot of times in these situations is no one's ever really thought about what they would do if someone starts shooting a gun right next to them. And they kind of go into this freeze mode. And we go and we get your mind in that place and we train you on the appropriate response that we'd like to see. And then we cover, at the end of that class, a law enforcement response. Some people think that as soon as law enforcement shows up on scene to these events, that the event is over. And in fact, it's not. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do as law enforcement, so we kind of share some of that information with you guys just to know what to expect from us. And then the part two to this is actually, we call it CRASE 2, the Advanced Response to Active Shooter Events. And again, we'll come out to your place of business or your school, your church, wherever we are requested. And this is the more interactive portion of the class. So we cover some very basic first aid and what we call TCCC, or Tactical Casualty Combat Care, in the class. And basically all that is the number one killer in these events is actually blood loss, not people getting shot in the wrong spot. So we go over ways on how to keep the blood inside the human body and train our civilians on stopping the bleeding so that we can save lives. So this right here is what I'm holding, is known as a CAT, stands for Combat Application Tourniquet. We bring these to your place of business. What we've learned from our wars overseas is these pieces of equipment are extremely effective at stopping the bleeding and tourniqueting and saving someone's life. When people get shot, they start to bleed a lot. This allows that blood flow to be cut off to that extremity, allowing that blood to stay in that person's body. So we actually bring a bunch of these out for our CRASE 2 training. We pass them out, we teach you how to use them, and we encourage people to have these in their cars. And this isn't just for active shooter training. I mean, you go up to an accident where somebody's bleeding profusely. If you know how to use a tourniquet and save somebody's life, that's what we encourage. If you like to go outdoors and hike where help could be pretty far away, what happens if you start bleeding profusely because you fall and have a compound fracture or something like that? To know how to apply these is really a life-saving vital measure, and that's why we like to teach how to use a tourniquet properly. 50% of the time, these events are over before the first law enforcement officer even shows up. So we teach the civilians on scene that they can do something while waiting for law enforcement to respond, or even after we've already responded. So we do that training, and then we run a couple what we call medical scenarios or duct tape drills. We use small red pieces of duct tape to simulate gunshot wounds or stabs, and have our participants actively engage in scenario training where we evaluate how well they provide tactical casualty combat care. Then we introduce some auditory stimulus Basically, it's a starter pistol, a blank shooting gun that we run scenarios with, and we set up different scenarios based upon the church or the business and their specialty needs. And we run various scenarios using the blank gun and test the response of the participants. So I want to introduce you to the blank gun that we use for the active shooter scenario training. This right here is just a starter pistol. As you can see here, it's orange handled, orange tipped. It doesn't actually shoot anything out the end here. There's no actual blanks that get fired. With a blank gun, you still run the risk of injuring people because there is a lot of pressure that comes out the end of that barrel. This gun is not like that. It shoots little tiny primers. It's about 1/3 the volume of an actual gun. So when we come to your business and stuff, it's not super loud and super scary to people, but it does still create that auditory stimulus that we need to run the scenarios. Each class runs about 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on the instructor. So it's 2.5 hours to 3 hours for CRASE 1, or the first part, which is just a PowerPoint presentation. And then about 2.5 to 3 hours for CRASE 2, which is that active scenario training that we talked about. So this CRASE training is offered free of charge to residents of Franklin County. Whether you're a business, a school, a church, wherever you need us, we can come to your business, your school, your church, and do this training. And we can do it at any time. So we're available evenings, weekends. We've even done some businesses on third shift. So whenever you need us, officers certified to teach this from our SWAT, our Community Relations, and our Patrol Bureau will come out whenever you need us to teach. We can set up those times. I'm the coordinator for the CRASE program, so if you get a hold of me, right now we're scheduling about 2 months out, but we can set up a time to come out and give you guys the CRASE program. I can be reached at my email, which is mtfether@franklincountyohio.gov, or my desk number, my phone, is 614-525-5014. Or if you go to Franklin County Sheriff's Office website and you click on the CRASE program, all my contact information is right there on the webpage.